We continue with Russian Sunrise, and we're on chapter 14, which opens on June 2015, the Romanov Nobility Ball. Romanov Nobility Ball Preparation, Detroit, Michigan. Katerina and her daughter, Maria, both romantics at heart, had spent the past several days building dreams about the upcoming royal ball. Both had rented luxurious evening gowns that were beautiful and flattering without being immodest. The Romanov Nobility Ball Attendees Guidebook, overnighted to them along with their official letters of admittance, advised that more traditional evening gowns were appropriate and encouraged, and that modern, overly revealing styles were least frowned upon and in some cases could result in denial of admittance to the event. As required, George had rented a traditional black tuxedo. The guidebook advised that the music would be typical of the late Romanov Russian Empire, roughly 1850 through 1920, and would be played by a live orchestra. Traditional ballroom dancing was the required form, with an emphasis on the waltz. So George, Katerina, and Maria had taken a crash course in ballroom dancing in their downtown Detroit condominium, taught by a private dance instructor personally recommended by Don Brown. Mikhail had arranged to drive down to Detroit from Nazareth and stayed with his brother at the Kova Rectory in Detroit on Thursday evening. The final dance instruction session, including Mikhail, took place at the Petersons that evening so that the two couples could, quote, fine-tune their style before appearing under intense media scrutiny at the Romanov Ball on Saturday evening. By Tuesday, June the 16th, after the Sunday, June the 14th orchestral mass, Mark felt well enough to join Maria for their usual morning run on the Wayne State campus. After 4 miles in the June heat, they sat together on the grass beneath a shade tree, savoring the gentle breeze and sipping Gatorade. Mark told Maria how Father Romanov, who normally never praised anyone following a performance, had telephoned Sunday evening to check on his well-being. Once he knew Mark was feeling better, Father had enthusiastically reported that Maria's organ performance in the Hayden Mass had been absolutely outstanding, and Mikhail had done such an excellent job of replacing Mark for the Weinberger organ concerto that Mark needn't feel bad at all about having been ill. "I really missed being with you on Sunday," said Mark, "but I'm proud of you, girl. No one gets a compliment from Father Romanov. No one, and yet you did. You must have been fantastic. Do you even realize how much I love you?" She put her arm around his shoulder and fought back tears. "Mark, there's something I have to tell you. On Friday, I'm going to go to New York to the Romanov Nobility Ball as Mikhail Romanov's date. My parents are going too. It's all rather sudden. Mikhail just invited us on Sunday." "I see. While I was at home sick." She saw her beloved best friend, her joy and soulmate, the one who replaced the brother she never had, also began to fight back tears. For Mikhail, it's really a political trip. He's finally going to break into the social circle of Romanov nobility. My parents and I are just going along as props because we're eligible as people with a royal heritage, and he needs our moral support. "Well, I'm just a poor Polish graduate student," said Mark. How am I supposed to compete with a Russian crown prince? Mark, you are noble, in the truest sense of the word, and you have been my brother, my best friend, my companion, and my joy for all these years. I will always love you, and we will always be dear friends. I promise you that. She leaned her head against his, and tears began to streak down both their faces as she continued. But I do not know exactly what the future may hold for each of us in terms of our vocations. We could easily choose to cling, each one to the other, as the one who is completely familiar, comfortable, and safe. Perhaps we could marry some day and be blessed by God. But do we really know if that is His will for us? Now Mark began to sob openly. She knew that a part of his heart was breaking, so she cradled his head against her neck and she stroked his wild and sweaty curls. I'm not angry, Maria, he said. I don't know exactly. Mark, we've loved each other since we were children. We never thought the day would come when time and circumstance would pull us apart. Neither one of us has ever really thought about not being together. Do you think you're falling in love with him, Maria? Is he going to steal you away from me? Oh, Mark, what can I say? I didn't go looking for him. He came to me out of nowhere. When I was exhausted after my Kalamazoo recital, I didn't go searching out my royal genealogy either. That, too, came out of nowhere when my parents suddenly announced I was a princess, and I never even dreamed of going to a ball just for nobility. All I ever thought I wanted was my mark and my parish and my music. Now, it seems like my whole world is being turned upside down. It's okay, my love. Don't you know that, if necessary, I would even die to defend your happiness? They sat in silence for a few moments, softly weeping. Then Mark continued, It may even be that the hand of God is in this, and it may be that dying to myself is exactly what I have to do. Sometimes I have thought God might be calling me to the priesthood, but I never would admit it to myself or anyone else, because I couldn't bear to think of losing you. No matter what, Mark, I will always love you. It could be that this New York adventure with Mikhail will prove to be a royal disaster. No pun intended, quipped Mark, now smiling and wiping away her tears and then his. God will show each his plan for us. The only thing we know for certain is that it will include the cross. They arose and walked, hand in hand, across the campus athletic fields towards the locker rooms. Duty was pressing in upon them, calling them to work and smile as mature young adults, even while their hearts ached. But heaven was smiling upon them with unimaginable blessings in store for each one. Mikhail and the three Petersons were scheduled to meet at Detroit City Airport on Friday noon, at which time Don Brown's jet would fly them all directly to a private airport near New York City. A stretch limousine would then drive them directly to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Arriving by 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, they would be admitted directly to the Brown Group's three-bedroom condominium on the top floor. A private dinner would be served at the condominium, catered by the hotel. Brown Group security and hospitality staff would attend them throughout their stay. On Saturday morning, a standard limousine would drive them to a traditional Latin Mass in Manhattan at 9 o'clock, and would then take them for a buffet repast at Don Brown's favorite breakfast club. At noon, Mrs. Brown's private New York hairstylist would be waiting at the condominium for the ladies, accompanied by a barber to trim up the gentlemen. Then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a famous New York-based dance instructor, arranged by Don Brown, would assist the two couples with a final practice session of ballroom dancing in the privacy of the condominium living room. The Romanov Nobility Ball would begin Saturday evening at 7 o'clock in the Waldorf Astoria Grand Ballroom, with formal entrances and introductions of each couple. Dinner would follow at 8 o'clock in an adjoining dining hall with assigned seating. The family tradition sought to follow the rules of state dinners in the latter days of the Russian Empire. Years ago, the family had commissioned a set of chinaware, goblets and wine glasses, emblazoned with the Romanov double-headed eagle, and these were stored in a special wooden chest and brought to the hotel each year for the event. Attendees were seated according to rank by couple, so that men and women alternated around the table. Conversation was generally limited to those adjacent and across. The trustee of the throne would sit in the traditional spot for the emperor in the center of the table. The heir apparent to the throne would be seated across from her. Marina was widowed, and her son Grigory was not formally courting, so mother and son would attend as a couple. The next persons in line for the throne, according to family records, would be seated adjacent to this leading couple in descending order of rank, first to the right, next to the left, and so forth, and would be accompanied by their spouse or guest. Those family members and guests with no potential claim to the throne were relegated to the farther ends of the table. To preserve imperial tradition, each course was served to everyone simultaneously, and no one could begin eating until the trustee of the throne raised her fork or spoon. She would then take care not to lay her utensil down until everyone had finished the course, because as soon as she did, all places would be cleared at once to make way for the next course. When dessert was finished, about 9 o'clock, dancing would commence in the grand ballroom and would continue until midnight. The first two dances were reserved, in succession by rank, to the two couples currently closest to the throne. Each couple would dance alone to a traditional waltz, while others in attendance watched in admiration. Then the dance floor would open up for everyone. Each lady had been provided with a dance card, pre-printed with the name of each gentleman in attendance and his family rank if relevant. The ladies were expected, in the course of the evening, to dance with as many Romanov gentlemen as possible, and dance numbers could be promised beginning during the time of formal introductions before the dinner. The orchestra leader would announce the number of each dance, allowing a few minutes for couples to shift according to the commitments found on the ladies' dance cards. This encouraged all family members to maintain at least passing acquaintance with each other. The orchestra would be on break for 15 minutes during each hour, and during this time the gentlemen would retreat into a men's lounge and the ladies would retreat into a separate women's lounge where they could greet new attendees and renew old acquaintances of the same sex. Once the orchestra stopped at 12:45 in the morning, there would be an open bar in the ballroom until 3 o'clock in the morning, and most of the attendees would stay the entire time to visit with others. Cova Rectory, Friday morning, June 19th, 2015, Detroit, Michigan. At 9 o'clock on Friday morning, Father Kirill Romanov and his older brother Mikhail settled into the rectory study at the Cova after a light breakfast in the kitchen. They were intent on sharing advice before the momentous events which were about to unfold. Within 36 hours, Mikhail would make his appearance on the world stage in New York City as the probable heir apparent to the Russian throne. 18 hours after that, back in Rome, the Holy Father would lead the consecration of Russia as requested at Fatima, and the number of Catholic bishops in the world would be automatically diminished by the exact number who refused to cooperate fully. How quickly this would result in any obvious changes in Russia was for heaven alone to decide. Father Kirill set down his half-empty coffee cup and looked at his brother Mikhail in the eye. "Mike, bro, you're going to make quite a splash. You realize, of course, that the media will lap it up, right up, don't you? I mean, if it was the same matronly heir apparent and her son that they have been reporting on for the last decade, it wouldn't rank very high in importance. A couple of inches on the 17th page of the Sunday Times and a couple of photos in the society pages. But all of a sudden, a dashing young decorated war hero appears, accompanied by a beautiful young woman with remarkable poise, and the press and the paparazzi will go gaga over the photo ops. At least a front page reference for sure, and maybe even one front page photo. Then a full page write-up with several more photos on about page 4 and a bunch more photos in the society pages. Maybe even a minor op-ed piece about old world monarchy. Big stuff, bro. Sounds terrible. I prefer a quiet life. I'm only going because they threatened me. Look, Mike, a lot of people are just going along with their lives on a planned trajectory, thinking they know just where they'll end up in 20 or 30 years. Then, out of nowhere, heaven throws them a curveball, and their entire life plan is turned upside down. It happened to Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus. It happened to me when I was finishing music school and the parish offered me a scholarship to seminary. You had a pretty serious girlfriend at the time, as I recall, needled Mikhail. Yes, and Mother was all set for me to marry her. Then I woke up one morning and suddenly thought to myself, I know, I think I'll be a priest. Remember how my mother cried when I told her? Yeah, but she didn't cry because she was thrilled you were going to be a priest. It was because you weren't going to marry the girl she had already selected as her new daughter-in-law. But in the end, Mother was glad I became a priest. Yeah, that only took her about 10 years. Well, her life got turned upside down suddenly, too. See the point? No. The point is, your life is about to be turned upside down, Mike. And it may well be God's will. Your future may not be anything like you imagined a year ago. Kirill, I'm just trying to find a way not to get killed. Listen, bro. There is someone who wants to meet you this morning before you go. Around here we call him by his birth name, Father Jacob. He was very impressed with your singing and playing last Sunday, by the way. For the past few days he's been joining me here about this time. Look, Kirill, I don't think... Good morning, my sons, said the Holy Father, as he glided into the rectory office with his morning cappuccino in hand. His black cassocks, he looked like a simple... In his black cassock, he looked like a simple parish priest, but Mikhail knew who he would be and therefore could recognize him despite the fake beard. Holy Father, I would like to introduce my older brother, Dr. Mikhail Romanov. He was the bass soloist for the Haydn orchestral mass last Sunday. He also played the organ for the Rheinberger concerto with just 6 hours' notice. Mikhail fell on his knees. Nicholas pulled his fisherman's ring out of his black cassock pocket and permitted Mikhail to kiss it, thus demonstrating his respect for the office of Peter. "Please, my son, be at ease," said Nicholas. "You have shown proper respect for my office, but I am only a man, and, at the moment, a rather befuddled one at that. Your brother here, along with our mutual friend Father John Harold, has been of immense help to me, more than I can say. I seem to be going through a time when my whole life is suddenly being turned upside down." Mikhail glanced at Kyril and rolled his eyes. No doubt Kyril had recently given the same spiel to the Holy Father. "Let's see, Professor Dr. Romanov, I believe," began Nicholas. "Please, Your Holiness, just call me Mikhail." "Ah, yes. Well, then, Mikhail, please accept my sincere compliments on your superb musicianship. Your organ and voice performances last Sunday morning greatly uplifted me. I would never have guessed you were doing the Rheinberger on short notice." "Thank you, Holy Father." "Mikhail, please, I am here incognito. You must just call me Father Jacob. I can't risk having others here discover who I am. There could be great danger if my whereabouts should be discovered. Father Kyril has assured me you will be completely trustworthy." "Yes, Father. But enough about me. Father Kyril tells me you are off to New York today for a great adventure, one to which he has given his blessing. By the way, Doctor, your young friend Maria Peterson is quite a talented musician and a most dignified Catholic young woman, and a princess, too, I am told." Mikhail blushed. "It has all happened rather suddenly, you see," he stammered. "Much like the upcoming consecration of Russia. I doubt this is any coincidence, mind you. Heaven seems to be moving at breathtaking speed to bring about real change in Russia. We may feel as if we are helping to make it happen, but really we are all just spectators, caught up in the current of history and watching in wonder as heaven moves to change the world." "Why, what did Kyril tell you, Father Jacob?" "Oh, not too much. Merely that you are, beyond any reasonable doubt, the legitimate Romanov Crown Prince of Russia, and that you are about to make your appearance on the world stage on the evening before I consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in union with all the Catholic bishops in the world. That's all. Actually, I never had intended to make anything of my family history. The world of princes and monarchs is long gone, and God saw fit to put me here in modern America. Now think, Mikhail, the Pope is a prince and a monarch. Heaven is a monarchy, where Christ is king and his blessed mother is his queen, just as King David's widow Bethsabee was queen in the royal courts of her son, King Solomon. Monarchy is the natural form of government. Modern democracy is essentially an historical aberration, born out of mankind's revolutionary rebellion against God's established order, which by nature is hierarchical. We are not conditioned to think that way in America. I dare say not. But there are still people who hope for the restoration of fallen monarchies, especially the Romanov family of Russia. Yes, apparently they don't like the fact that I exist, because under their family rules I would be first in line for the throne, except that I am Roman Catholic, and they can't live with that. I have actually been threatened recently. Yes, Father Kirill explained it all to me. Of course they have threatened you, because there are some of them who have spent years being in love with the power and glory of the throne, which they believed was potentially theirs, and now they think you have come to steal it away from them. So they are desperately looking for some way to disqualify you. Well, they found it, Father Jacob. They say I must either revert to the Orthodox faith or renounce the Russian throne and never return to Russia, or die. I can never renounce the Catholic faith, Father. Of course not, my son. And I don't think it would be just to force anyone to renounce a hereditary title, which by tradition and dynastic law ought to be God's decision. I fully agree, Mikhail. You do? Oh yes, it's obvious to me that these events, your appearance at this year's Romanov Nobility Ball, and the Pope's imminent public consecration of Russia, are occurring at one and the same time, so the world will understand that heaven has blessed Russia with a miraculous, complete conversion. For Russia, too, the world is about to be turned upside down. It doesn't just happen to people, you see. It can happen to nations, too, when heaven so decrees. Do you think if Russia converts, she will restore her monarchy? Oh, I would think so. Monarchy is the formal form of government for a Christian confessional state, because it reflects the very nature of heaven itself. And if Russia becomes a Catholic nation, then perhaps she will no longer demand that the new Tsar be Orthodox? Exactly. Now you're getting it. Personally, I'm foreseeing that the Russian Orthodox Church will probably come over to Rome en masse, much like many of the Anglicans did. But almost all of the Russian people will convert in a very short span of time, and that is the miracle promised through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which the world will not be able to deny or ignore. The doctrinal differences between Catholic and Orthodox believers are fundamentally political, not theological. I can foresee that the faithful could choose to attend either rite, the Roman Rite or the Russian Orthodox Rite, because they would both equally be Roman Catholic rites. Suddenly, a restored Russian monarchy would be able to function in either rite or in both rites, and all the while remain in perfect harmony with both with the Pope in Rome and with the Russian Orthodox Church. Wow, that could actually be a heaven-sent way out for me. Yes, that's why I don't believe it is any coincidence that these things are happening all at once. But to cooperate with heaven to bring all these things to fulfillment, we need to ensure safe travels for you to New York, and then for Father Jacob back to Rome. I'll be flying out tomorrow morning in the same private jet that will be flying you to New York this afternoon. So, my sons, all three of us must go upstairs to the rectory chapel and kneel together before the Blessed Sacrament and pray the rosary together. we need to ask our Blessed Mother to intercede with Jesus so that the holy angels will travel with us and keep us safe. There are great powers, both natural and supernatural, which would like to impede our travels and our temporal and spiritual objectives if they could. The threat you received from the Romanov family should be the least of your concerns. So the three men left the study and climbed the rectory stairs to fulfill the Pope's request. After they prayed, Mikhail knelt once again to kiss the papal ring and received a special pontifical blessing traditionally reserved for princes and kings who had the duty to assist the Church in shepherding the souls of their people home to the safe sheepfold of eternal salvation. Kirill then called for a brown group driver and sent his brother on his way to City Airport and to the elegant world of the Russian Royal Ball. And this will end this part of chapter 14, and we will continue in the next part. Thanks for listening.